All right, welcome to another edition of Boxing Moment. It's been a while since we've been in the boxing game, but we got a big one coming up here this Saturday. It's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be a cooker. We got a lot happening in the game, and we got one of the best in the business. I feel like it. We got one of the nows, but we got our own Darnell Kirkland Jr. Yeah, we're talking about Jermell Charlo and Canelo Alvarez will be in the ring meeting, putting it together, and you know. A lot of people think they might think it's going to go on or what's going to go on, but this could be a great fight, and then it has a great undercard. But I want to start with Darnell kind of just taking us through breaking down the fight, and then maybe if you have time to even talk about the undercard, other fights we should be thinking about. But for folks who have been following along, there's been a lot happening in boxing. How did we get to this point where we had it was supposed to be the other Charlo, then we ended up with Jamel. And now I feel like we got an interesting fight, more interesting than people think, happening here on Saturday. But for people who weren't paying attention, how do we get to the point where we got this mega fight going on? That was crazy. I don't think it's been promoted very well.
Well, there was conflicting stories, right? Because most of us in the most of us boxing fans were hearing that it was going the Jermall Charlo, which is Jermell's twin brother, it was going to be him who fights at 160 versus Canelo, and that fight was going to be in the works. But when it got announced, it ended up being Jermell versus Canelo, and Jermell claims that it was always going to be him versus Canelo, but people behind the scene, the writers and everybody else said that it was originally was supposed to be Jamal, his brother, and then when it was determined that he wasn't able, he wasn't in the right place to fight, that the fight was handed to his brother Jermell, and the guy and Jermell Charlo, he's the undisputed champion at 154 pounds. Um, well decorated fighter, um, skillful, has great conditioning, great chin, great heart. It's going to be a very interesting fight. But that's really how we got here. I don't know if you want to lead up into anything else.
Yeah, and I think you add the extra layer on is just the tension
Yeah,
between the brothers, their wives, that add the
yeah.
other layer that's here that came out right before the sprints fight
Between
against
Crawford.
Crawford, and so there's like these other storylines that's a part of it. You got these guys who
Well, yeah,
that's also part of the storyline. That I mean, not about the
yeah,
boxing,
but
but it's the kind of things that affect
it's
how
it's
Jermell was
it's,
coming into the fight.
it's no secret that the brother Jamal is unwell at this
Yeah.
time. He's not mentally in the right place. At the fight, he Jamal also got into it with Caleb Plant, and Caleb Plant spoke about it recently on Gilly Gillian Wallow's podcast, $1 Million a Game. He spoke on it and just the erratic nature of what he was saying and how he was behaving. It was like, man, this guy seems like he's on some type of drugs, man. And
Mm.
yeah, he's definitely. And you saw him training with Roy Jones. That doesn't look like the same Charlo. If we're being honest, it doesn't look like the same Charlo. So yeah, hopefully he can get back to who he was before. But right now, yeah, he is not in the right place, especially for a matchup like a guy like Canelo Alvarez.
So we look at the fight. All the noise. At the end of the day, it's going to be two guys standing in the middle of the ring, and somebody got to, as Mills Lane used to say, it's going to be let's get it on. They got to get it on. And so if you were breaking them down, the keys to victory for both of them to get technical, what's the keys to victory for Jamel, and then we'll talk about the keys to victory for Canelo.
Man, the keys to victory for Jamel is he has to control the space. He has to control the distance, and that's one issue that I saw in the Castano fight. The first fight, he has Jamel was in this passive high guard. So like, if I'm the taller man, right? Um, well, if you're the taller man and I'm the shorter man, and you're in the passive high guard, passive high guard just means a high guard. Both my hands are up just like this, and I'm not this, active high guard like my hand. I'm moving my hands. I'm active with it. Giving you different looks, different angles, stuff like that. I'm just standing like this, um, the shorter guy he can walk in like Brian Castano, and if he's unimpeded, he can throw combinations and get active. Like you're letting him walk into the space and work freely, right? And that's going to be a big problem against a guy like Canelo, who is a great power puncher. And if you're just focusing on not focusing, but so you're just depending on the jab to keep him out at bay and not using any other systems of control, I think you're going to be in trouble because Canelo, he's shown in the past that he knows how to flip a jab. He's always been the shorter man in all his fights, so he's used to being able to come in and work his way to the body and then come back up top. He's a master counter puncher. Um, I think I think the biggest key for Jermell is to control that space, control the glove, control the head of Canelo to manage distance better. Right, I think that's his biggest key, and on top of that, try to let the combinations flow, and don't necessarily try to load up on punches as much. And I think those are the biggest keys, and also just be defensively as responsible. I know that's kind of a given going moving up to weight division, especially fighting a power puncher like Canelo. But yeah, you got to stay defensively responsible. So those are my three keys for Jamel.
And I would add part of that is you're talking about being active and controlling is keeping it in the middle of the ring. Canelo gets you to the ropes or gets you that, he starts to control. And a lot of times, Canelo's really good at controlling distance and space and creating pressure that gets you to react even when he's not throwing a punch. And that sometimes ends up with you backing into the ropes. In other places, he'll just start loading on that body or he'll get you into the corner. So he's got. I feel like he also has to have awareness of where he's at in the ring, and where he can use some of his athleticism, the distance, getting in and out. But turning, keeping Canelo, keep resetting, right, along with that stuff. So those are pieces. I'm not as deep into as you, but it feels like that's another element about it that I think Canelo is just a master at creating pressure and getting you to the ropes. Then he can unload or getting you near it where you start to cut that space so you can cut it off. He starts, like you said, going to the body, going to the head, taps you and resets. Like he starts to control that tempo when he's like doing that. So you got to make him react a little bit. So Canelo, we kind of gave Canelo's keys when we're discussing, but Canelo's keys
Yeah,
to
Canelo.
weakness.
Well, Canelo's one of those fighters. He he kind of has the same game plan for every fight. Like he's a very experienced guy,
Mm-hmm.
and at this point in the game, he knows what he wants to do and he knows how to execute it. So he's a aggressive counter puncher. He is a pressure fighter now. The only thing that I see in that is like a lot of times you can see what Canelo is. Like I said, with Jermell is one of Jermell's keys, but it's really a key with Canelo is Canelo loads up a whole lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he loads up a whole lot, he can leave opportunity and space for not Crawford, but Charlo to evade punches and counter and get
Mm-hmm.
away. His athleticism. I think if we see the Canelo, I know he's not going to be the same Canelo that fought Danny Jacobs, but if he can kind of tap back into that style where he's using more of the head movement, he's letting the combinations flow. I think that's going to be a key to success for him. Um, I also think that's just where Canelo was at his peak when he was fighting
Mm-hmm.
him at 160 against the Danny Jacobs of the world. But if we can see more of that from him, I think that would be great. But yeah, I think he Canelo's a guy that he knows what he wants to do. He's going to try to break him down and use that for one the experience, but also the experience at the weight. Charlo's never been hit by somebody that's as strong and as big as Canelo Alvarez, and he's going to go test that. You know what I'm saying? He's going to go test to see if he can take it.
And you got what Jesus Ramos Jr. versus Erickson Lubin is like the
Yeah,
co-main event. What?
we got plenty of fight. I got the list
Yeah,
up here now.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is what a pay per view card is supposed to look like. Look at
Hmm.
all these names.
Oh man, yeah.
You got your boy Ugas versus Mario Barrios on here.
That's a title fight interim.
And
Yeah,
you like more. I know you like Mario Barrios a lot.
yeah.
Fighting Ugas. Jesus, like you said, Jesus Ramos is fighting Erickson Lubin. That's gonna be another great fight. Ramos, he comes in there, he goes in there to bang. He has a whole lot of power. Erickson Lubin, his chin might be a little questionable, but one thing you can say about Erickson Lubin, he always comes to fight. He never turns down a challenge. When Fundora was hot, he went to the smoke. When Charlo was hot, he went to the smoke. This is a guy. He's a fighter's fighter. He's a throwback, man. You got Elijah Garcia, a prospect, real talented guy. You want to tune in to watch him. You got Terrell Goucher, a guy a lot of you guys might know. Alexander Vozdik. Vozdik is back. Vozdik is a guy he retired. Adonis Stevenson. And then in turn, the next fight he got retired by Better BF, but he is back. Real talented guy. Somebody you want to watch. He's fighting Isaac Rodriguez. I don't think I've heard of him before, but also you have Frank Sanchez on there. Frank
Yeah, I
Sanchez,
saw Frank.
heavyweight. He trains with Canelo. He trains in that camp. A lot of head movement. He's very skilled for a heavyweight. Jermell Moulton, we're seeing. I think this might be his pro debut. This might be Jermell Moulton's pro debut. He's one of
Yeah, it is.
the most highly touted amateurs in the game, fighting out of the Floyd Mayweather gym. He had a big fight in the Nationals against Shakur Stevenson's cousin. He did take a loss there, but man, that could be a potential big storyline going into the pros. Having Zaquin Moses, who is Shakur Stevenson's cousin, versus Jermell Moulton in the future. But yeah, Jermell Moulton's a very talented amateur. And to see his pro debut, that's just, man, I don't know. I suppose some of these fights are not going to be on the pay-per-view version. Some of these going to be a little, the undercard they throw on YouTube or something. But yeah, we're getting a lot of fights. If that is like the fifth or sixth fight on there, this is a good card. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got Beck the Bully on here. You got some names. Justin Valoria. Okay. I like it.
Yeah. So we it's going to be a hot one. All right. So we're going to end it. The final count. Who you got? Who going to win it?
Well, I got Canelo by stoppage, round 6.
Round 6.
Yep.
Yeah, you heard it here. The youngin' I gave it to you. We giving you this stuff, so don't go running to the bank. You better sprint. You better sprint to the window and get your bet in. He done gave it to you. Man, we look forward to it. Obviously, we'll talk post fight. I know we're trying to get some other folks in here. Some of our lot happening in boxing games, so we'll try to create space to get some of our other contributors to boxing conversation in here. But it's good to get an episode here of the boxing moment out here and we got to hear from the most talented, Darnell Kirkland Jr. Thank you, brother, for putting it in. We're gonna catch up. We're gonna catch the fight. You and I will definitely be on social media. I usually score the fights. He's easy on there, so y'all might not like my scorecard, but I'm pretty good. I'm getting pretty close. So I've been learning from young, and my cars usually come in pretty close to that. I'm learning from young in here a little bit. I'm learning to judge these fights. I'm not perfect, but I'm usually in the range with this. So y'all can catch us online, social media, during the fight, scoring it and also doing it. So please share that. Obviously, you can catch us all. This podcast will be on all podcast platforms. So it's on. If you look at the video version, we got an audio version on Spotify and all the other ones as well, or you can catch our video. So please give us a comment, rate us a 5. We're trying to get it up and going, and so we count on your support. All right, until we see you again, enjoy the fight, and we'll be talking to you after it's all said and done.